going? Okay. Hi guys. My name's Kate. I go by Ghosty Online. Trying out some new software and stuff here. As it comes to find out, my PC had decided work with uh, work with basically the microphone on my webcam instead of my actual mic. So hopefully this sounds a lot better. Um, Today I wanted to make a video and talk about actually a documentary that I recently saw. Um, and for a few specific reasons that I'll get into. First, it's actually a Netflix documentary, and I know that's probably like pretty basic. I don't like usually watch a lot of Netflix stuff, um, so it's been a while since I saw like the lineup of stuff that they had on there, and and I'm a big true crime fanatic, and so I have been just going through their entire catalog of like true crime like docu series and stuff like that. Just as I've just been, you know, doing my day to day thing. Um, I don't know what the deal is. I've been like so nervous and awkward about making these videos recently, and I know that nobody's like really watching them, but at the same time, my whole intention, like I've said many times, was just to make them for fun. So anyway, I apologize if the beginning of this one and maybe the beginning of all of them ever have just been super awkward. I mean, I am an awkward person as well, but anyway, I'm still kind of trying to get into the swing of things, and hopefully by the end of like the first 2 minutes or so, I can get into some kind of speaking cadence. Regardless, so I was watching, just a bunch of true crime docu series on Netflix, and I came across one called Sins of Our Mother, and I'm sure that many people have seen it, and in fact, it's covering a case that I had heard about or read about before. I had probably seen a YouTube video on it. The reason I say that I don't usually watch a lot of Netflix is because I usually just watch shit on YouTube. Um, so anyway, long story short, I watched this Netflix documentary, and I'm like halfway through the episode, and it sort of occurs to me that a lot of what the individuals that are featured in this show are talking about are things that I have similar or common experiences with. Not to say that I just like that I should be featured in a true crime documentary or anything. There hasn't been like a serious crime committed against me at any point. But um, well, that's not true. But regardless, my point with saying all of that is, I guess it kind of stunned me, just to see how many similarities there were in a case where there was clear patterns of abuse, where there were people who saw the things that were transpiring and were worried about the people who would inevitably become victims, um, and how many similarities there were between what I experienced growing up and what these kids experienced growing up. Specifically, the documentary takes a big focus um, an individual named Colby Ryan, um, who is the son of the perpetrator of some vile acts. I don't want to like get into the crimes themselves too much or glorify the crimes at all, but basically, I really like connected with this guy, um, because a lot of the stuff that he was talking about throughout the course of the documentary were things that I like really closely related to. It almost made me start crying actually, like right in the first like half of the first episode, just because he was talking about his. Well, there was a few things that stood out to me. One thing in particular was his mom's response to him saying that he had been sexually abused. And I guess he said that his mom kind of just didn't respond maybe seemed kind of angry, didn't really uh, express that, didn't wasn't like in any way comforting, I guess. And I related to that in a lot of ways because my experience with doing just that very thing um, was basically very similar. Like we didn't talk about it. Like it didn't. I don't know. It was something that uh, I think my parents were in a lot of ways ashamed to bring up. You know, like um, maybe it was also just easier not to talk about it. But at the same time, not the right way to handle with your kid, right? Whenever they come to you with a serious issue. Another thing that he expressed was how he had been abused physically by a step parent multiple times, which is something that I myself have also experienced. Not with someone that either of my, you know, not someone who was not has long since not been in my life. That showed patterns of abuse against physical abuse against myself, against my brother, and especially against my mother at that time. And it was a scary time for us. He talks about Colby talks a lot in the documentary about how they'd move around a lot, and I could really relate with that. But of course, like the number one thing that him and I had in common was, of course, that he was raised in the LDS Church. He was raised Mormon. Um, there was he had an experience where he talked about going to a Christian church and saying like this is better for me. And I don't have an experience exactly like that, but I remember trying to just go to church with my friends, and like early on that wasn't okay. Later on, that my parents' opinion did change on that, and later on, whenever I came out to the point where I was saying that I didn't want to be religious at all, or I'm not religious at all, they were just encouraging me to find any religion, which was kind of a flip flop from their previous stance on it. But that was another thing that him and I had in common, which I thought was very interesting. Um, of course, a lot of these things transpire whenever he's a kid. He goes throughout into his adult life. He's turns out to be a pretty successful individual. I don't know exactly what he does, but he is able to move away from his family, um, and as I, not necessarily a result, because of all of these events happening, there are some killings that happen in the family, and the a lot of the like driving mentality behind these killings is driven by mentalities that are vaguely associated with the LDS Church, right? Religious mentalities for sure, but I would not call them like mainline um, Mormon beliefs, and that's a big difference in the upbringing that I had versus the upbringing that Colby Ryan had that he was given. Is whenever he was coming into his teenage years and as becoming an adult, even whenever he was getting married and all of those things, his mother was starting to explore like fringe offshoot beliefs from the standard LDS church beliefs. It's not something that I have in common with him at all. However, I will say that the church does talk a lot about the end times, and the LDS Church, the name of the church, is the Latter Day Saints, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints. They believe themselves to be the last dispensation of people that will come to Earth before the second coming of Christ, which will inevitably result in the death of a lot of people, right? In the damnation of a lot of people, so to speak. Of course, the Mormons don't necessarily believe it that way, but they do preach a lot about the end times and like how to prepare for the end times, and I do find that mentality can be dangerous. It's almost startling how many serial killers or killers in general were raised in the Mormon Church, It's like staggering if you look into it. Um, and I'm not sure if that has just to do with like a general social maladaptive disorder that I think a lot of Mormon individuals suffer from. Like a lot of LDS people come off as sort of socially inept, and I don't know what the reason for that is exactly, but I suffer from a lot of that myself, and uh, and I'm not sure if that's like a contributing factor. I think definitely a contributing factor is um, the way that so above most anything else in the Mormon Church is the temple, right? Like the ability to go to the temple, to qualify to go into the temple, and sitting down for that temple recommend is a big deal. And so I think that there's like this really heavy burden of sin, I guess, like this physical barrier, like this very real thing that you can see. These are the clean people, and these are the unclean people, right? Um, and so some Mormon wards, some Mormon congregations are perfectly fine, whereas other congregations gossip, right? Um, I I can't say what's right or wrong. Everyone has the right, at least in America, to choose how they want to live, for the most part. Um, but it frightens me that there are so many ideologies, many of them religious in nature, that are proliferating ideas that may not be, while they may not be directly harmful in what they're saying, they lead almost they lead almost directly, one step removed, to these really harmful behaviors. Um, in a lot of ways, it's not good for people to just go out and let it all hang or whatever. But you need to have morals, and it's good to know right from wrong in your own heart. Uh, but at the same time, you shouldn't need to be told what that is. Um, I think you need to come to a point in your life where you decide what to believe. That's my only, that's my personal belief. Um, Regardless, I guess that was kind of a tangent, but yeah, I guess all I'm really trying to say is I found it so fascinating that the household of this heinous individual, who if I've been good, I haven't mentioned her name a single time. So I'm gonna try to keep that going. Um, but it's crazy to me that that the household that this individual created, in a sense, was so similar to the one that I grew up in so many ways. Um, and it resulted in the death of two lovely kids, which is really sad. Anyway, uh, I just thought that was fun. If you want to watch the documentary, it's called Sins of Our Mother. At that point, they talk plenty about the perpetrator of the terrible crimes that I was alluding to throughout the video. So, enjoy that. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. So, anyway, my throat is killing me. So, that's it for this one. Thanks, guys.